Italian cultural heritage, and I'm going to talk about the process of unification of Italy. Italy is a geographical expression. This very famous sentence that all educated Italians know is due to the Prince of Metternich, who in 1814 presided over the Congress that undid the Napoleonic Revolution. But let's start from the beginning. The first time Italy was unified as a political entity was under the Romans, or by the Romans. Rome, as we saw, started out as a tiny little village, but it became the great empire that we all know about. Italy, including Sardinia, Sicily, and Corsica, was first unified in 200 of the Common Era. Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica came to be part of the Roman Empire much later than the peninsula and the continental northern part of Italy. When the Roman Empire collapses in 476, Italy is invaded and dismembered into little states or tribal states run primarily by barbarian tribes or local rulers. 476 is the last year when Italy was unified under one sole ruler. It took until 1870, so we're talking about 1400 years, for Italy to become unified again under one ruler. The Dark Ages mark the period of disintegration of Italy into a dust bowl of microstate, little towns, cities, each ruled by the local aristocracy or by a family or by a strongman. Anyway, zero unity whatsoever. This is the map of Italy in the year 1360, pretty much around the time of Dante, Petrarca, and Boccaccio. And this is when the concept and ideal of a unified Italy begins to penetrate the consciousness and the conscience of the elites. The rulers of the various states begin to think of Italy as a unified entity, and they fight each other to the death in order to be the ones who eventually unify Italy. In this map, it looks like altogether Italy is not all that fragmented, but if we go a little more granular, we get a different idea of what Italy was like in the 1300s. It was a crazy quilt of tiny little states all fighting with one another. This is the period of the city-states where every city basically had some kind of territory that it controlled and would ally itself with one neighbor against the other and then change the alliances. The motto of the day was, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. As the times change and Italy becomes more prosperous in general, the smaller states tend to collapse and be incorporated into larger states. So that in the 1500s, we have a situation that looks more or less like this. This is the time when Niccolò Machiavelli and Francesco Guicciardini theorized the possibility of a united Italy and also described the methods and the political process that would be required in order to achieve such a result. So Italy is no longer an ideal, a dream of poets and literary figures, but it becomes the objective of study of the philosophers and the historians of the time. But despite the theories, the reality remains the same, and around 1700, Italy is pretty much the same as it was 200-300 centuries earlier. By the 1700s, Italy again is in a state of decadence, caused by the colonization of the New World. The states that are on the Atlantic now have a strategic advantage. The Mediterranean is no longer the center of the European world, but it is just a backwater. It's a little local lake. And here we come toward the end of the 1700s to the period that for the first time reunifies Italy temporarily under a foreign ruler. And the foreign ruler is Napoleon. Napoleon was born in Corsica when Corsica was still part of the Duchy of Tuscany, and he always had a particular interest in Italy, to the point that when he became emperor, he also wanted the title of King of Italy. Napoleon was an enormously successful military and political leader, and at a certain point, at the peak of his career, he controlled all Western Europe. Either directly or by proxy, Napoleon controlled the entire country. And in a way, Italy was unified, quote unquote, under one ruler. Here to the left we have the map of Europe under Napoleonic control. All the areas in yellow or green are to an extent or another controlled directly or by proxy or through alliances by Napoleon. But as you know from the history lessons that you got from Abba, Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo. The deposed kings and rulers of previous countries didn't waste any time, and in 1814 they recreated the Europe that existed before Napoleon. This political operation was called Restoration, and that is in this context that the Prince of Metternich from Austria uttered the famous verdict that Italy is a geographical expression only, which meant that Italy was not entitled to become a unified country, but it was destined to be broken up in small little states and return to the status quo prior to Napoleon. But the cat was out of the bag, and the Italian elites, in particular the intellectuals, became inflamed with this nationalistic idea and ideal that Italy should be unified. And it was the Duchy of Savoy that eventually unified Italy. Savoy is at the very top, the farther western frontier of Italy, very close to the Alps. By luck, bravery, political ability, alliances, eventually the House of Savoy is able to unify most of Italy by 1861. But if we look carefully at this map, we notice that there is one area that is still missing in the center, and it is the state run by the Pope. The Pope still held on to significant amount of territory right in the middle of the country, and in particular it held the city of Rome with its enormously symbolic importance. So Italians use the date of 1861 as the date of the unification, although the complete and full unification actually took place in 1870 with the fall of Rome. The big push for the unification happened in the last 12 years before 1870, and by 1870 Italy was unified.